Okay, so Dr. Habib wanted me to talk a little bit about how to produce oculoplastic surgeries. I'm sorry that we didn't have live injections today. And I'd just like to give you some of my tricks, some of the different systems that are out there. And hopefully, I think it's really useful to video your surgeries. And the reason I say that is that, for one, you have a lot of material to use in lectures, but also it keeps you honest in the sense that, before you make maybe some shortcuts or something like that, it's always on camera and keeps you going. I think I always give credit to the cataract surgeons because they really were the pioneers with regards to putting videos together of surgeries. They could do it relatively easily because they had a quick surgery and they had a microscope through which everything was being recorded. And it's a little tougher with oculoplastic surgery, but my approach has always been to give free access, no login, short videos, transcription of the narration so that people can read that if they can't understand my narration. And I always say that, if you go to my site, you can download these. I've always just asked that you acknowledge me. And I usually say, please just use it for education, don't use it for commercial use. There are a lot of potential video systems, overhead ceiling mounted, in light, microscope, headlight mounted, endoscope, and then also just manual video. But I think the main disadvantage in producing these videos is that as opposed to the cataract doctors who basically were videoing what they saw, when we use any of these systems, we're not necessarily seeing what we video. So you always have to have a monitor and you always sort of have to keep an idea of what is going on. So this is just an example of a standard ceiling mounted camera. And this is just for a medial canthal defect. I'm checking the lacrimal system here. So what you can see here is that the nice thing is that a ceiling mounted camera does not move, but you need to have things centered and you need to keep your hands out of the way and you need to keep your head out of the way because those are some of the problems in using standard ceiling mounted cameras. Now this is a high definition camera, widescreen, which I think is my preferred ceiling mounted camera. And this is nice because it sort of gives you more of a cinematic ratio. And we're just removing a gold weight here. But again, you have the issues with regards to trying to keep things centered, trying to keep things in focus, and then also trying to make sure that what you're doing is able to be demonstrated on the video. There are limits, though, to the ceiling mounted camera, and I think orbital surgery is very difficult to video because once you start moving into holes, once you go deep into the orbit, this is just for an orbital floor fracture, you really can't see inside. And so there's other systems that you have to move to, such as a microscope, or you can use the headlight mounted, which we'll show later. So there are these little in-light cams, and basically what they do is that they fit onto your surgical light. The nice part of that is that you can put this on your light, and you know that wherever your light is, your camera is. However, with the ceiling mounted, you can adjust you can use an XY to adjust where exactly the camera is. But with the ceiling mounted, you cannot do that. So you have to use your hand to put it where you want it, and then you can focus separately to get it. So it does all right. As long as you have it centered, you can do okay. But it's not my favorite in the sense that I just feel like I don't have as much control. It's just not as easy to use. And again, you can see since it's in line with the light, my hand is in the way. And this is just a patient with a retinoblastoma that we're doing a biopsy on. So the other issue is that this is a lateral wall decompression where we're drilling down the lateral wall. And again, so I am trying to get a video of where the light is. This can be difficult. It can be difficult to look into areas deep in the orbit. And there's lots of different tricks to do. So you can notice that the light, that the room light is off, because if I illuminate the background, I'm not going to get illumination of the area that I'm trying to video. And so you have to turn off all the lights, use a headlight, and try to put the camera in line with the light and try to keep your hands and head out of the way. again, another example here of a decompression where, again, sort of a difficult surgery to video. Unless you know what you're looking at, it's somewhat difficult to know. We're just burring down the lateral wall of the orbit. So a malleable retractor is protecting the globe, irrigating, but again, very, very difficult to get a video in this area. So you can move over to a microscope. So this is a vascular malformation in a patient, and I'm using the microscope. So the nice part about this is that I no longer have to worry about getting into the way. My camera, what I'm seeing through the microscope is what is going to be seen on the video. So it's really, really nice with regards to that. But I'm not a big fan of using the microscope. I like to use loupes. And I gave up the microscope back in the days when I gave up cataract surgery. But in some instances, it's really nice to use, as in this instance. And also, if you want to video a particular type of surgery, it's nice to use. So what we're going to do here is use sort of a combination of two things. We're going to use a ceiling-mounted camera. This is for an optic nerve sheath fenestration. And so I'm using the ceiling-mounted camera until I realize that, okay, I can't get a good video anymore. And now I move over to the microscope. So I'm upside down, surgeon's view now, and using the microscope so that I have a better view of the area that I want to do. So we're just isolating the optic nerve there, making an incision in the optic nerve sheath to do a fenestration for a patient that has idiopathic intracranial pressure or pseudotumor cerebri. And so a nice thing to do if you're trying to demonstrate everything. And again, this is a DCR through the microscope. Again, a difficult surgery to video with a ceiling-mounted camera. So using the DCR, we're just opening the lacrimal sac there and getting a lot of mucopurulent material. And it's nice because this way I can demonstrate formation of the flaps, which I cannot do if I'm going to do this using a ceiling-mounted camera. So I think it's good to have lots of different types of cameras available to you if you can use it. For lacrimal surgery, it's nice to be able to use an endoscope. Again, almost all endoscopes will have video capability if it's hooked up to a monitor. So in this case, I'm using a combination. I'm just doing a probing of a child for a congenital nasolacrimal duct obstruction. And then what I can do is that I can switch over to the endoscope so that I have a view. So you can see here that there's no view in the nose. There's no real visualization with regards to trying to show exactly what I'm doing. The nice thing to do is to take the endoscope out and then demonstrate your intranasal anatomy. So we're just going under the inferior turbinate here, and that way we can visualize where the probe is coming out from under the inferior turbinate. So again, a combination of different systems to use in order to demonstrate the surgery that you want to demonstrate. And I'll actually skip that one. So the other thing that you can do is you can use a headlight mounted camera. And the nice thing about this is that it's, again, almost videoing exactly what you see, but it's on your head and you have to keep your head still or people sort of get sick while they watch your video. So this is on my head. I have it with the light. It's in line with the light. So basically wherever I put my light, I know that I'm going to see the video. And this is just a patient where we're doing a small incision browplasty without the endoscope. And, a lot of movement though, and you sort of have to consciously keep your head still in order to get a video that's going to be usable. If there's too much movement, it's unpleasant to watch. Maybe all these are unpleasant to watch. But again, another example of an overhead camera where we're trying to show the orbital floor, but again, having difficulty demonstrating that. And so if I had if now I'm doing the same surgery with the camera on my head, upside down, surgeon's view, and so getting down to the orbital floor, and we can see a little bit better into the orbit with this headlight mounted camera where it is coaxial or in line with the with the light. So I know that wherever I put my light, basically I'm going to be able to get a video of that. So it's nice in the sense that this way I can show depth a little better. So this is just repair of an orbital floor fracture. Intraoral surgery is pretty easy to do. So this is just a hard palate harvest with ceiling mounted camera. Hard part is just to keep your head out of the way. You can see head's in the way there. So you sort of have to remind yourself. Sometimes I'll have the nurse tell me if we block the camera. And again, a mucous membrane harvest can be done with the overhead camera. So I think the challenges to making these surgeries are sort of the 3 H's is what I say. Getting your hands in the way, getting your head in the way, and then also trying to look into holes, because those are the things that are difficult to do. Other challenges is that the surgeries that we do are longer than the cataract surgery, so you often have to do a lot of extensive editing. Some of the editing software can be relatively unfriendly, and then narration itself can be burdensome. I actually transcribe all my narrations and then narrate it as I read it, just because it's difficult to do it there's lots of difficulty in doing it without doing that. I think a lot of advancements, so in the old days, cameras were very expensive. The editing and narration is a little more user-friendly now than it was before. And this is just, I can send this if you ever want to know what it is. I mean, these are the camera parts that I use, and I can send this to you if you ever want to. If you ever look. If you're going to narrate these, invest in a good microphone. Just the microphones on the computer just aren't adequate. And to me, what makes a successful video? I think one of the best things is to sort of have a critical mass of videos, meaning that if you say, well, tomorrow I have this surgery, I'm going to video it, and I'm going to have a great video of it, something's going to go wrong. It's going to be off-center, it's going to be out of focus, or someone's hands or head is going to be in the way. So my approach is to just video all of my surgeries, and maybe 10% are usable. Maybe 10% are usable. And then I just sort of pick the best ones from there. The videos in the end have to be short, they should be narrated, and I think they should be transcribed. It's just so that they can be translated relatively easily. Okay, I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.